Welcome back to No Sleep Teal on Reier on YouTube. Travis Reier back with you on what turned out to be a really stormy Thursday afternoon in Duval. Fortunately for Doug Peterson and his team, plenty of sunshine in the AM hours, plenty of heat, plenty to talk about following day 2 of 2024 training camp for the Jacksonville Jags. And so what we're going to do is spend a lot of time while we have you going through some 11 on 11 takeaways that we had from the practice. And it won't just be offense and defense, which, by the way, the defense with a big day on Thursday. Ryan Nielsen, he's talked about creating a very competitive environment, a sort of depth chart free environment here during the early stages of training camp, and looks like he's getting that. A lot of guys making a lot of plays for this Jaguars defense during the first couple of practices of the preseason. So a lot of defensive talk today, but there were some highlights on offense. I think most would agree it wasn't Trevor Lawrence's best day, and maybe some psychosis going on there. We're not going to go too deep with that just 2 days into camp. I think we have a greater sample size of a lot of positive things that we've seen from Trevor, when the bullets are actually real, but we still have some of the scar tissue from the second half of last season. And so, that kind of plays into it as well. And we'll get into the offensive side, and we'll also talk some kicking game, because we saw some of Cam Little and Riley Patterson, the two competitors for that place kicking job, in terms of putting those guys under the gun in a practice situation and seeing how they respond. I'd say for Thursday anyway, Cam Little responded the way you would want a 6th round pick, a guy that you invested draft capital into, did just that. So again, working through 11 on 11, and we'll get to the special teams as we wind some things down. But for the offense, it just didn't really get off to a great start. You had Trevor Lawrence missing Elijah Cooks on a crossing route, and I think Trevor would be the first to tell you he's got to hit Cooks on that type of throw pretty much every time. And then, on the defensive side, it was interesting because, again, getting back to Nielsen and trying to play and look at a lot of different guys and different combinations, that's what we saw. We continue to see Andrew Wingard working alongside Andre Cisco at the safety position, but we did see Antonio Johnson very early in 11 on 11 with Cisco at safety on Thursday. Saw a combination of guys at that nickel spot, that slot corner, but looks like it is still Darnell Savage for the most part that is opening with the first 11 when the Jaguars are in that nickel look. Christian Braswell also working in there. Gregory Jr. continuing to work in there. We haven't really seen Antonio Johnson yet at the slot corner in sort of team drills or 7-on-7. Now, during Thursday's practice, in more of an individual or positional period, I thought I saw him over there working inside in front of a couple of safeties. So I think that's still, I would guess, on the table for Antonio Johnson, but it's been pretty much safety for him during 7-on-7 and 11 on 11 work. Defensively, hard to take a lot out of it in terms of the line of scrimmage because they are still in shorts and helmets. But Tyler Lacey, draft pick in the 2023 class, we saw him working inside a good bit with the twos, and really, again, mixing in 2s and 3s. Mason Smith, Justin Jefferson, the 2 draft picks up front from LSU, kind of in that same boat as well. And offensively, we'll go back and forth here. There were some good things. I thought Devin Duvernay early in practice with a cool little slip screen that had Cam Robinson out in front of him doing a nice job. Cam moving extremely well early in camp. That was a nice hit for the Jaguar offense. Josiah DeGuara, one of the tight ends, and continue to be concerned about tight end beyond Evan Ingram. So I'm kind of throwing everybody out there right now. He was able to draw a pass interference penalty on Daniel Thomas in some of the 11 on 11 work. And again, while it wasn't the greatest day for Trevor Lawrence by any means, I thought CJ Beathard did some good things at the quarterback position. And I've been of that opinion and still continue to be that Mac Jones is, in all likelihood, your number two when you go down to South Florida to open against the Miami Dolphins. But Beathard was efficient. Beathard was assured of himself. Beathard was accurate. Beathard took care of the football. Now, he worked primarily with the twos and the threes, but it didn't seem to matter all that much which combination of people you put around him. He hit Denzel Mims on a very impressive sort of dig route, deep crossing route, pretty early on in 11 on 11. And you think about some of these other wide receivers, Brian Thomas Jr., critical to this offense in 2024, and not to the extent that he has to be an 80-plus catch guy. But as we've said before here on No Sleep Teal, he can't just be a guy on the outside that's really fast. He's got to also make some plays. They've got to hit on some of those opportunities. And I don't expect the red zone to be, where he's highlighted a lot. I mean, you'd like to. He has size. He has athleticism. He can go up and get the football. But I think that's going to be more Gabe Davis. Maybe it's going to be, you would hope, more from Evan Ingram, perhaps even with Etienne. You're able to throw him the football down there if you're not running it as well as you want to. But for the second day in a row, Trevor hit Brian Thomas Jr. with a very nice ball in the corner of the end zone, and Thomas wasn't able to finish the play. And so, you think back to the draft and a lot of people asking the question, how do you still have access to a talent like Brian Thomas Jr. in the late teens of the first round? And Brian Thomas Jr. may turn out to be an all-pro, maybe a Pro Bowler. But I think the consistency question that was there at LSU, and he had a great year in 2023. And a lot of folks will look at last season and say, well, Malik Neighbors is there. That's going to eat up a lot of the opportunities. Well, LSU's had some other combinations where that really wasn't as much of a problem. It wasn't as much of a problem for Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. It wasn't as much of a problem for Jefferson and Jamar Chase back in 2019. Again, Thomas, very nice season and worthy, I think, of the selection where the Jags took him. But 2 days in, he's had some opportunities, and you really need to see him start to convert on those. It's still early, not putting the clock on Brian Thomas Jr. by any means, but it's something that's been noteworthy because they have looked to get him involved in these situations pretty quickly in these practices, and you just want to see him start to develop more of that reputation that he can actually convert on opportunities. Defensively, again, I thought, Foye at the middle linebacker position, just absolutely rock solid. He had a really nice forced fumble on Luke Farrell, the tight end in the red zone, where he actually scooped up the loose ball and sprinted down the left sideline. And it spoke to a couple of things. It spoke to the value of Foye. And it also sort of reaffirmed the concerns that I continue to have about the tight end position beyond Evan Ingram. You got Luke Farrell. You got Brenton Strange. You still have got a little bit of a ways to go there at the tight end spot as far as a traditional inline guy. And it's early. So, again, hopefully that will start to rectify itself as the Jags move through this preseason. Speaking of tight ends, a lot of 12 personnel for the Jaguars on offense during Thursday's workout. We saw that too on Wednesday. And as a result, you had a lot of base defense from the Jaguars defense. And, you don't see that as much in football these days, but especially when you get more into red zone work, that's where you're probably going to see it. And it makes a lot of sense for the Jags because with Evan and also now Gabe, you can do some things on the inside to kind of get them matched up. Even Christian Kirk, we saw some of that we'll get to here in just a little bit. But again, Beth did some good things. Hit Devin Duvernay against man coverage for a touchdown there in 11 on 11. But the communication, just the rhythm of the offense, just didn't seem to hit full stride at any point, and you're giving the defense credit for that. But there are times where it's Trevor Lawrence working with Evan Ingram, and they don't hook up. And these are guys that have worked together for a few years. And you saw Doug Peterson during the practice after they had a bit of a breakdown. Trevor wasn't able to hit Ingram on a pretty easy throw. Peterson took time post snap, post play to kind of talk to both of those guys. And the depth in the secondary as we bounce back and forth, I thought showed up nicely during the practice. You've got guys like Trey Flowers. He's a 6'3" long corner. Had a nice pass breakup in one situation. You go back the other way. We talked about red zone and what you can do with these different options. Christian Kirk had a very nice sort of delayed maybe option route where he was working against Darnell Savage inside and kind of made easy work of Darnell and an opportunity there. Back to the other side, Ronald Darby, these first couple of days at corner has been everything you had hoped he would be. He had a great pass breakup on Elijah Cooks. But for the most part, it was a day for the defense. It was a day where maybe you start to question your wide receiver and tight end depth. I'm not ready to go panic mode with Trevor Lawrence at this point by any means. Could there be some psychosis that you're working through right here with Trevor? Fresh off the new deal. You don't want him pressing too much. That can go both ways when a guy gets that kind of deal. It can go that, well, now he's comfortable and now he's going to be able to just cut loose and play football and kind of come into his own because there isn't the concern about longevity or where am I going to be in 2 years or am I going to get that second deal, that big deal. He's got that. And then the other side of that, though, is that guys get that deal and they take it to mean, okay, now I've got to really carry this whole thing. And every snap I've got to maximize the production potential. When in actuality, more often than not in a league like the National Football League, it's teams that beat themselves more than anything else because the dividing line in talent is so close that it comes down to a mistake or two. And, Trevor had a couple of those in the practice on Thursday. He had one on Wednesday. The red zone whispers aren't whispers anymore. It's very loud in terms of the concern as far as ball security and doing what he needs to do in situations where, okay, don't try to force it in here. Let's make sure we get points. Let's not turn the ball over and basically snub our nose at the opportunity to put 3 points on the board. I think Trevor forced some things again on Thursday, and I'm sure that's being talked about in depth in the meetings that follow and in the lead up to Friday's work. And I'm not as worried about Trevor, not to this point anyway. I'm more worried about if something happens to Gabe Davis and or Christian Kirk like it did last year, the Jaguars wide receivers. If that happens, that's where I have my bigger concerns for this offense because I think you still need to see a lot more from Brian Thomas Jr. and some of these other guys. I like Duvernay on Thursday. I thought he did some really nice things. And so more of the 11 on 11 talk, more of 12 personnel. Again, Jarian Jones working at a corner. And then you had Antonio Johnson and Wingard together at safety with Savage at the nickel. Again, it just sort of underscores that look as far as how they are switching some things up. And I'll say this for Trevor too. He had an extended play situation in the red zone where he not only bailed and got the corner and was going to make a play with his legs, he put the football in the sideline hand. He was running left. He put the ball in his left hand. Little things like that when it comes to ball security can go a long way, as we saw a year ago in a particular night game at Everbank Field where Trevor moved left, and I don't think the ball got there, and he had a pretty significant turnover. So more 11 on 11, really cool concept. And C.J. Beathard, once again, on target, just smooth, efficient to Duvernay. Duvernay for a touchdown on a wheel concept against Christian Braswell, who was working at that slot corner. And then CJ followed it up with another little slip screen to Parker Washington. And it was a really athletic, off balance sort of baseball delivery from Beathard. Looked good in doing so. And I also like this too from this Jaguar offensive staff. And I think they know that he has this in his tank. So it's not a point of emphasis as much, say, early on in training camp. Getting Trevor Lawrence on the move by design. And one of the few times we saw that on Thursday, he delivered an absolute strike, probably his best throw of the workout to Elijah Cooks working the sideline. Very impressive sequence there. Again, you know he's comfortable with that. And so if this were a game day or if this were Miami already, I think we would see more of it than what we've seen just in the early stages. If your emphasis right now is more on getting him work from the cup, then that's what you need to get done at this point. And, you know, we don't talk about Andrew Wingard, and I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that he was Ed Reed or anything like that, or has been, Hall of Fame caliber these first couple of days. But the thing is, that dude commands respect, and he gets it. You can talk to different people in that organization, and Wingard is a heavily respected guy. I think even though Ryan Nielsen is a new coordinator, he gets that. And Wingard with a couple of picks of Trevor, pretty impressive stuff. It seems like the assumption has been, well, Antonio Johnson's just going to jump in there opposite Andre Cisco, and they're going to roll with that. But Wingard these first couple of days making plays, it's been cool to watch. And of course, you know what he means or can mean to the special teams. That's a given. But Wingard serving a little notice that, hey, I'm in here still, and I'm not just going to roll over and let the young guy just jump right in there. Or perhaps Darnell Savage jumps in at that safety spot. But it's been a lot of Darnell Savage at that slot corner with the first group through 2 practices. And then you get into later in the practice with punt return options and kickoff options. Duvernay was one of those. Washington was one of those. Keelan Robinson we saw. And I know we heard from Doug and saw some of this during Wednesday's practice with the toe sprain. But Keelan looked a little more comfortable, I thought, on Thursday, coming off his first training camp practice as a rookie. We saw Jarian Jones back deep, catching some punts off of the jugs machine. Don't want to wear out Logan Cook and those 2 kickers you got in camp. And then we also on kickoff saw Tank Bigsby, Dearness Johnson, what you would expect in terms of reserve running backs, and also when you think about wide receivers as well. And you know what else we saw? And we're going to pull it up right here, right now. We saw some of the kicking competition unfold right before our beady little eyes, and we're going to run it right here. You had alternating kickers during the practice on Thursday, and Cam Little, as we see right here, drills from distance. And during the time that I was watching the kicking here, by my estimation, you had Cam Little +3 as far as makes were concerned. And I'm not saying this guy's going to be Justin Tucker. I'm just saying for a 20-year-old, and that's something that gets lost in some of this stuff with Cam Little. He's 20 years old. He's 170 pounds. Even by kicker standards, that's pretty light, especially in the National Football League. Man, it does not show up in the pop off of his foot. Not saying he's going to be Justin Tucker. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I get some young Justin Tucker vibes just in terms of how he strikes the ball. And there you see Riley Patterson missing out right. Looked like Riley had a case of the rights during this sequence here. I'm trying to get that camera right. I'm trying to make it work for you. But it was pretty much a perfect run during this portion of practice for the rookie from Arkansas, Cam Little. Again, great lift, great pop, plenty of range. He can go back to 60 plus, no problem. Now, when they were in teamwork later in practice, 11 on 11, they capped a period with a field goal attempt by Cam Little, and Cam missed wide right himself. And we also saw Riley Patterson in a similar situation connect. So I would say for the day, Cam was still on the plus side of that thing. There you see right there, Patterson, unfortunately, with the doink after missing right a couple of times, he catches some upright there, but just an ongoing situation for those guys, and one that you can count on. No Sleep Teal to keep a close eye on. That's going to do it. That's your day 2 update from Jacksonville Jaguars 2024 training camp. We're planning on being back out there on Friday. Hey, again, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel here, we certainly hope you'll do that right now. Hit the subscribe button, turn on those notifications. Hit us with a thumbs up if you don't mind. That would help us out tremendously as well. Travis Reier, thanking you again. Until next time, so long, everybody.